Hello, and welcome to Not Very Scary Stories. For today's episode, I'll be hitting on another personal story of mine and a friend's. Then I'll also be using another friend of mine's story. His name is Daniel. Be sure to leave a follow, sub, or whatever you can on whatever platform you're on. Also be sure to leave a review as well, so people will know to listen in as well. I'd like to thank you guys for the support thus far on all the platforms you can find us on, including YouTube. I'd also like to remind everyone that if you have any scary stories or experiences you'd like to share, email me at darkskygamenews@gmail.com and tell me how you would like to be credited. I'm Zenith Darksky, and I'll be your host tonight. Enjoy. This story starts out when I was working my first job as a custodian at my former school. I worked with a couple friends, one of which got me the job there. The friend who got me the job there, we're going to call him Charlie. Now obviously working at school entails that not only am I working in the high school that I was so used to venturing through, it means that I work in the elementary school as well. Now, I don't think I'm alone in saying that working in a dimly lit elementary school at nighttime is unnerving, to say the least. It may be the horror stories I've listened to, it may be the movies I've watched, but it's not the most peaceful feeling job, especially at our elementary school. There were several of us custodians that really felt like we were being watched very often. Like we had a persistent feeling of dread when we were in that building. I'll let you in on some of those things that we experienced here, as they would be too small for episodes on their own. One night, I was vacuuming a rug in one of the elementary classrooms. Now, let me say that I understand how loud vacuums can be, and I understand some of the sounds they can make are a little frightening on their own. But this time, when I was vacuuming, I distinctly heard a little girl scream. High-pitched and guttural. I got goosebumps immediately and turned off my vacuum. It was much louder than the vacuum itself, so I know it was unrelated. I don't even want to mention that I kept feeling that night that I was being watched through the dark tinted windows of the room, and through the whole experience itself. I was completely caught off guard, so much that, in a panic, I jogged to the classroom door and looked in the hallway to see if I could have been mistaken and potentially been one of my mischievous co-workers or something else playing a prank on me. No one was there. Then there's the PE building. The PE building, back in the day, started as a small auditorium. By the time I was in elementary school, it had become the cafeteria. By the time I was out of elementary school, it was our PE building. As our school was starting to expand. As I grew up in school, there were many rumors of a suicide in that room many years ago. There were also rumors of a suicide or a death in our old gym building, but we'll get to that. But the PE room was very eerie. The teacher's office was upstairs, where the sound controls used to be for the auditorium, at the front of the room. Several of my coworkers reported seeing people in that office while cleaning, but never found anyone actually there. Charlie and I had been scared from the room several times, when we would just see random dodgeballs rolling across the floor and doors slamming themselves shut on occasion. Charlie had even heard footsteps in the room with him. I asked a PE teacher about some of these sightings, and she specifically told me that you would never catch her there after 5 p.m. unless she absolutely had to be there. She often heard things move herself, or even whispers. She often would find doors open, or things misplaced. She claimed to not be so sure of who could be haunting the PE building, but she claimed to have an idea on who could be haunting the old gym. The old gym was empty feeling, to say the least. It was just a basketball court with bleachers on each side, but one side of the bleachers were shorter due to a practice cage for baseball/softball. There were 2 bathroom/locker rooms at one end, and the other went up the stairs to some offices, trophy cases, and more locker rooms. It was extremely common for people to report basketballs bouncing around by themselves on the court. Some people even reported hearing singing or humming echoing across the room. Our PE teacher recalled to us a story about a former girls basketball player being bullied at school and tormented at home, who had taken her life. That would explain the basketballs, at least. But the most terrifying event to occur to me was during our summer shifts while we were working as custodians. The reason I gave you all of the other information first is that those other events still don't frighten me to talk about nearly as much as this last experience. Another friend of mine and Charlie's had started working with us. We'll call him Keith Nash. Now, let me take a pause here to say that he asked me specifically to refer to him as that. He also told me to tell you that he did. Either way, Keith and I had taken a break away from the rest of the custodians in the teacher's break room, instead of ours. Well, while we were on break, we found megaphones for the teachers, so we started playing around with the megaphones. We would whisper things or say things into it and record it and play it back on the megaphone. Then it happened. After 5 minutes or so, I sang part of an old video game song where it says, "Open your heart." And I will admit that I did sing the part in a higher pitch, and we replayed it, and it did sound normal, but kind of funny, so we laughed about it. Then we replayed the line again, and it was fine the second time. On our third try, though, we replayed the line one more time to get a final laugh out of it, and it wasn't nearly the same. It sounded like a woman's voice. I get chills just thinking about it again. It definitely was not my voice. Keith and I looked at each other terrified. Both of us instantly got hot in the face. I felt my adrenaline coursing through me instantly, and I know it seems like an overreaction, but it completely caught us off guard. The first words out of Keith's mouth were, "I don't like that. I don't like that shit at all." All I could do was exclaim, "What the fuck, dude?" We didn't want to, but we played it again, one more time, just to know what we heard. And it was normal. It sounded like me again. Now, this was both terrifying and calming in a way. It was calming because we didn't have to hear it again. But it was terrifying because now we knew for sure we had heard a different voice. We sat for what had to be 5 minutes or more, attempting to recreate the voice, and it never happened again. So we know that it couldn't be just a weird issue with the megaphone. Whatever it was, we both maintain to this day that it wasn't me. Maybe our old PE teacher was right. Maybe there was some truth to those stories of a girl killing herself. And maybe she wanted us to know. This next story is from my friend Daniel. Well, my encounter is rather difficult to explain. I should preface this by saying that it is commonly thought that dogs and animals in general are thought to be able to sense spirits or otherworldly things of that nature. My experience happened around 3 years ago, approximately 9:10 in the morning. I was using the bathroom when my dog started barking uncontrollably, to the point that I assumed someone could be walking up my driveway. It wasn't uncommon, after all. I was curious as to what they were barking at, but I was unable to see out of my bathroom window as it was too far away for me to look from my, let's just say, sitting position. Well, to overcome the inconvenience of not being able to see, I decided I have a phone, why not? I took my phone and reached out to take 3 quick pictures from the window. Each picture was no more than 5 to 10 seconds apart at the most. Just enough time for whoever I assumed was walking up my driveway to potentially come into the frame of my cell phone's camera. At first glance, I didn't notice anything out of the ordinary, and as it turns out, there was no one walking up my driveway after all. Okay. So, what were my dogs barking at? No big deal. They're dogs after all, so maybe it was a squirrel or something. Well, later that evening, I had taken a few pictures of Smokey, one of my dogs, and when I went to my gallery to look at them, I had seen the pictures of my front yard and driveway that I had taken earlier. And that's when I saw it. In the second picture, there was a small light phenomenon that was shaped like a human walking. I quickly ruled it out as possibly being glare from the window, but in the third picture, there was what I can only describe as a shadowy demon, either coming out of or grabbing onto the tree in my yard. The way it just seemed to cling to the tree, like it's almost looking for something that it just knew was there, still terrifies me to this day. The best way I could describe it would be a demon or a creature of some kind, but with no face and shrouded in a shadowy black, almost aura that still shakes me to my core every time I look at the pictures. It always makes me think twice before taking pictures alone in the woods again.